Fluent English, high confidence, and a strong personality, these things are never built overnight. They are shaped silently through every day, every thought, and every reaction. But the problem is, most people spend their whole life learning words without ever understanding their own brain. Even though the real battle is never about language, it is about the mind. Because people first lose inside their brain before they lose in real life. And with age, this same brain quietly decides whether a person becomes wise or mentally exhausted. But if you are still young, then this video can completely change your future mindset. Because today, you are about to hear a hidden psychology that most people never understand in their entire life. There was a boy. Let's call him Ryan.
He is 23 years old. He sits in every class, reads every book, listens to every lecture. But when someone asks him a question in English, something strange happens inside him. His throat tightens, his heart beats a little faster, and the words that were perfectly arranged in his mind just moments ago suddenly scatter. He looks at the floor, he says something small, something safe, and everyone around him thinks he doesn't know enough. But the truth is, he knows everything. The problem was never the language. The problem was something older, something deeper, something the books never talked about. It was the story his brain had been quietly telling him since childhood. What if I say it wrong? What if they laugh? What if they think I'm not smart enough? These aren't language problems. These are brain patterns, emotional programs, running silently in the background every single day. And this is what most people never notice.
The human brain is not designed for confidence. It is designed for survival. Think about that for a moment. Your brain's first job, its oldest job, is to protect you from danger. And for thousands of years, being rejected by the group meant death. Being laughed at meant isolation. Being seen as weak meant losing everything. So your brain learned something very early in your life. It learned embarrassment feels like danger. When you're about to speak and you feel that tightening in your chest, your brain is not being dramatic. It genuinely believes something bad is about to happen. It is doing its job perfectly. But here's the painful part. The world has changed. The danger is not real anymore. But the brain's reaction didn't get that message. So every time you try to express yourself, try to speak up in a room full of people, try to use a new language with confidence, your brain hits the alarm. Not because you are weak, but because your brain is old, ancient, wired for a world that no longer exists. And this is something most people carry their entire life without ever understanding it. They just call it shyness. They call it introversion. They call it not being a people person. But the science tells a completely different story. Now, here is where things get interesting. There is a mechanism in your brain called the reticular activating system. Scientists call it the RAS, but you don't need the name. You just need to understand what it does. Your brain receives millions of pieces of information every second. Sounds, light, temperature, movement, words. If your brain processed all of it equally, you would collapse. You would be overwhelmed in seconds. So the RAS acts like a filter. It decides what gets your attention. And here's the part that changes everything. It filters based on what you already believe about yourself. If you believe you are someone who struggles with English, your brain will find every piece of evidence that confirms it. The time you mispronounced a word, the moment someone looked confused, the sentence you couldn't finish. Your brain collects these moments like a lawyer building a case against you. And if you believe, even quietly, even without saying it out loud, that you are not smart enough, not good enough, not confident enough, your brain will work very hard to prove that right. Not because it hates you, because it loves efficiency. Because confirming an old belief takes less energy than updating it. This is why two people can walk into the same room, face the same challenge, and come out with completely different experiences. One person notices the smile. The other notices the raised eyebrow. Same room, completely different brains, completely different lives. But there's something deeper happening inside the brain. Meet a girl. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah grew up in a home where being wrong was embarrassing. Whenever she made a mistake at the dinner table, her father would go quiet. That silence felt worse than being shouted at. So very early in life, Sarah's brain made a decision.
Being wrong is dangerous. Being seen as wrong is dangerous. She didn't choose this belief. It was never written anywhere. It was never explained to her. It was just absorbed, quietly, slowly, through hundreds of small moments. Now, Sarah is 26. She's intelligent. She's capable. She works hard. But every time she's about to speak in a meeting, that old silence from the dinner table comes back. That same fear. She doesn't know it's from her childhood. She just knows she feels frozen. And here is the thing about these emotional programs. They don't announce themselves. They don't send you a message saying, "Hello, I am a childhood fear, and I am about to destroy your presentation." They just happen. They feel like truth. They feel like reality. They feel like who you are. But they are not who you are. They are what happened to you. And those are two completely different things. Most people live their entire lives confusing the two. They spend years thinking, "I am just not confident. I am just not a speaker. I am just not someone who expresses himself well." But "I am" is not a fact. It is a story. A story the brain has been repeating for so long that it started to feel permanent, like a wall, like a ceiling, like something you were born with. But you were not born with it. You were trained into it. And if you were trained into it, you can be trained out of it. This is not motivational talk. This is neuroscience. The brain has a quality called neuroplasticity. It means the brain can rewire itself at any age, under the right conditions. The brain changes when you act differently than it expects, not when you think differently, not when you want to be different, when you actually do something your old pattern says not to do. That moment, the moment you speak, even when your chest tightens, is the moment your brain starts quietly rewriting the story. Not permanently, not instantly, but it starts. Now, slowly the brain starts changing in silence. Think about learning to drive. The first time you sat behind the wheel, everything felt overwhelming. Too much information, too many decisions at once. You were exhausted after just 20 minutes. But after a few months, driving became automatic. You could drive and have a conversation. You could drive and listen to music. The brain had created a new pathway, a new habit, a new normal. Language confidence works the same way. The first time you speak English in a pressure situation, your brain sounds an alarm. Second time, slightly quieter. Third time, a little quieter still. The alarm never disappears completely, but it loses its authority. It becomes background noise instead of an emergency siren. This is the process that most people give up in the middle of. They try once. The alarm goes off, it feels terrible, and they think, "See, I told you, this isn't for me." But they were 30 seconds away from the beginning of real change. And this is what most people never notice.
There is a difference between learning and experiencing. You can learn how to swim by reading every book ever written about swimming. You can understand the physics of water. You can memorize every stroke technique. But until your body is actually in the water, until you feel the resistance, the cold, the sensation of floating, none of that knowledge becomes skill. Confidence in English works the same way. You cannot read your way into it. You cannot watch your way into it. At some point, you have to let your imperfect, uncertain, sometimes stumbling voice be heard. Not because it's perfect, but because your brain only updates itself through real experience. Not imagined experience, not planned experience. Real, slightly uncomfortable human experience. Every sentence you say out loud, even if it's broken, even if it's slow, even if there is a long pause in the middle, every one of those sentences is a small instruction to your brain. This situation is safe. I am safe. I can do this. And over time, those small instructions build something no book can build. But the dangerous truth starts here. Most people are not stopped by lack of knowledge. Most people are not stopped by lack of intelligence. Most people are stopped by something much quieter, much more invisible. They're stopped by the image in their own head. The image of who they are. The image of how others see them. The image that was formed so long ago they can't even remember when it began. And the cruel thing about this image is that it protects itself. When you try something new, when you step outside the story your brain has been telling about you, there is a voice, not loud, very quiet, very calm. It says, "This isn't you. This isn't who you are. This is going to be embarrassing. Go back to where it's safe." That voice feels wise. It feels like self-awareness. It feels like honesty. But it is not honesty. It is habit dressed up as wisdom. The wise part of you is the part that went looking for this video. The part that felt uncomfortable but stayed anyway. The part that knows somewhere beneath all the doubt that there is a version of you that is more fluent, more confident, more present. And that version is not a fantasy. That version is just a brain pattern that hasn't been trained yet. There is one more thing that nobody tells you about confidence. Confidence is not the absence of fear. Let that sit for a moment.
Confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the proof, built through thousands of small actions, that fear is survivable, that the alarm can go off and nothing terrible will happen, that you can speak imperfectly and the world will not end, that you can be uncertain and still be respected, that you can be human, real, flawed, still learning, and still be enough. The most fluent English speakers you have ever seen in your life, the ones who seem effortless, natural, magnetic, they did not start that way. They started exactly where you are, with a tightening in the throat, with words that scattered, with a brain that shouted danger in situations that were completely safe. The only difference between them and everyone else is that they kept going past the alarm. Not once, not twice, every single day, quietly, persistently, without waiting to feel ready. Because readiness is another story the brain tells. And you have been waiting for ready for long enough.
Now you have. What you do next is the only thing that has ever mattered. If something in this video touched something real in you, if you felt recognized somewhere in these words, then you already know this was not just a video about language. It was a video about you.
Hit the like button if you want to see more content like this. Content that goes deeper than the surface, that talks about the real things happening inside the human mind. Subscribe if you want this kind of thinking to become a regular part of your week. And leave a comment below, not about the video, but about yourself. Tell me one thing that this video helped you see about your own mind that you hadn't noticed before. I read every comment because this is not a channel. This is a conversation. And you belong in it.
The hidden psychology that most people never understand in their entire life is this. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not missing something that others were born with. You are a human brain, ancient, survival-wired, efficiency-loving, that has been running on old stories. Stories written in childhood. Stories written in fear. Stories written in rooms where being wrong felt like the end of the world. But you are not in that room anymore. You are here, reading, watching, looking for something real. And the fact that you are still here, that you stayed through every word of this, means that part of you already knows the alarm is not real. You just needed to hear it from somewhere outside your own head.